Hi, boys and girls. I have had so much fun looking for special books to read to you. It's made my heart so happy that I get to do this. Today I chose one of my very favorite books. It's called Somebody Loves You, Mr. Hatch, and it's written by Eileen Spinelli. This is a book that I love to read every Valentine's Day. But Valentine's and love should be every day, don't you agree? And it seems especially true now while we're doing our social distancing and trying to stay healthy. And if we look around, I bet you could see someone who's feeling a little bit lonely and sad in your family, in your neighborhood. And so this story is going to help you think about something that you can do, just like Mr. Hatch's friends and neighbors did. Let's see what our story's about. Mr. Hatch was tall and thin, and he did not smile. Every morning at 6:30 sharp, he would leave his brick house, walk 8 blocks to the shoelace factory where he worked, and at lunchtime, oh look, he's sitting all alone. He eats his cheese and mustard sandwich, he has a cup of coffee, and sometimes he brings a prune for his dessert. After work, he would make 2 stops on the way home, to the newsstand to get a newspaper, and then at the grocery store to buy a fresh turkey wing for his supper. After supper, he would read the paper, take a shower, and he went to bed early. He just keeps to himself. That's what everyone said about Mr. Hatch. Well, one Saturday when Mr. Hatch stepped onto the porch with his dustpan and his broom, he got a surprise. There was a package wrapped in brown paper. He had never spoken to the postal worker before. "Thank you, Mr. Goober," he said. Mr. Goober smiled. "You're welcome. I always enjoy delivering packages." Well, Mr. Hatch tore that brown paper off, and inside there was a white box, and he opened the white box, and he found another box. This one was heart-shaped, all satiny red with a pink bow on top, and it was filled with candy. And something fluttered to the porch floor. It was a little white card, and when he picked it up, it said, "Somebody loves you." Only then did he remember it was Valentine's Day. Look at all those chocolates. Well, Mr. Hatch wondered and wondered, who would send this to me? I am all alone. I don't have any friends. But somebody sent me a valentine? Who? Well, he put the box on the coffee table and he tried to do some dusting, but every time he left the room, he had to keep peeking in to see if the box was still there. He dusted and he felt like the dust cloth was whispering, "Somebody loves you. Somebody loves you." And at last he just flung that dust cloth away and he said, "Why, I've got a secret admirer." And then he did something he never had done before. He laughed. He laughed, and then he danced and he clapped, and then he took a piece of candy from the box and he ate it. Mr. Hatch changed his shirt. He found some old aftershave in the bottom drawer, splashed it on his face, and he picked out a yellow tie with polka dots on it. And then he went for a walk. Maybe I'll meet the person who sent me the candy. Of course, no one had ever seen Mr. Hatch wearing a tie, or smelling of aftershave, or smiling. So he got a lot of attention. Poor Mrs. Wee tripped right over her dog, and Mr. Dunwoody almost fell off his ladder, and little Tina Finn spilled all the toys right out of her wagon. Mr. Hatch was waving hello to all of them. On Monday it was back to work, but at lunchtime he sat right in the middle of the cafeteria and he spoke to everyone and he passed the chocolates around from his heart box. And on the way home he stopped at the newsstand, he got his newspaper, and then he said, "I think I'll have a pack of mints." Mr. Smith was shocked. "Was that you speaking, Mr. Hatch?" "Oh, yes, indeed it was. I would also like a pack of mints, and if you don't mind me saying so, Mr. Smith, you don't look very well today." "Oh, yeah, I'm not feeling very well. I was supposed to go to the doctor this afternoon, but the stand has been so busy I haven't had time." Mr. Hatch smiled. "Why, I'd be happy to watch the stand while you go." Mr. Smith couldn't believe his ears. "You would?" "Certainly, just show me what to do." And so he ran the newsstand for about an hour, and anybody that stopped by to buy their paper or magazine or a candy bar, they all got it from him. When Mr. Smith returned, Mr. Hatch waited on his way, and he said, I'm a little tired of those turkey wings. I think I'll have a nice fresh slice of ham. Mr. Todd weighed the meat and wrapped it. You look worried, said Mr. Hatch. Oh, I am. My little girl's late. She hasn't come home from school yet, and I can't leave the store until my wife arrives. Well, goodness, why didn't you say so? I'll go look for her. So he walked all the way to the school, found little Melanie Todd by the swings, and brought her home. Thank you, said the grocer. Any time, said Mr. Hatch. After supper, Mr. Hatch didn't even bother to read the paper. He decided to bake some brownies. It would be nice to have brownies to share with all the people at the shoelace factory tomorrow. But as he baked, that warm chocolate smell of brownies floated through the neighborhood. Children were gathering around Mr. Hatch's house, sniffing the air. Well, I suppose the factory could wait, so he brought out 2 platefuls of brownies. But what's brownies without lemonade? So he stirred up a nice cold pitcher of lemonade. And when the parents came to gather with their children, they had some of the brownies too. It turned out to be a picnic in Mr. Hatch's backyard. Then he dusted off his old harmonica, played some songs, and everybody was dancing. What a fun party. Well, the 2 days and weeks went by, and Mr. Hatch was smiling and laughing, and when he wasn't laughing, he was helping someone, and if he wasn't helping someone, he was having a party in his yard or on his porch. He seemed to have forgotten all about finding the person that sent the valentine. Then one afternoon, Mr. Goober the postman came to his door. His face was very serious. Come in, Mr. Goober, said Mr. Hatch. You look upset. I am upset. I made a mistake some time ago, and my supervisor, he's very angry with me. What is it? Do you recall the package I delivered to you was on Valentine's Day, I think? Oh, yes, I believe so, said Mr. Hatch. Now he was starting to feel a little uneasy. I don't suppose you still have it. Well, as a matter of fact, Mr. Hatch, I still have the box, but the candy is gone because I shared it. Why do you ask? I delivered it to the wrong address. It was supposed to go to another house. Mr. Hatch recalled tearing the brown paper off, and he never even thought about looking at the address. So he went and fetched the heart-shaped box with the pink bow, and he gave it to the postman. I hope your supervisor won't be too angry with you now. The postman was heading right down the sidewalk when Mr. Hatch recalled that he still had the card. Mr. Goober, I forgot something. And he gave the postman the little white card that said, Somebody loves you. Well, alone in his living room, Mr. Hatch sighed. Well, nobody loved me after all, he said. So he read his paper, took his shower, and went to bed early. Next morning at 6:30, Mr. Hatch left his brick house, walked 8 blocks to the shoelace factory, and at lunchtime he sat in the corner by himself, eating his cheese and mustard sandwich and drinking a cup of coffee. Oh, Mr. Hatch. After work, he stopped at the newsstand, got his paper, but he didn't speak to Mr. Smith. Then he went and got his turkey wing from Mr. Todd. He didn't even smile. He didn't even pat little Melanie Todd on the head, or bake brownies, or have picnics, or parties, or even play his old harmonica. Everyone whispered, What's wrong with Mr. Hatch? Mr. Goober the postman told him what happened. Well, we love him. He gave us flowers for our garden, and he helped to mend our back fence. I love him too, said Mrs. Weed. He saved his bones for my dog Ruffy. Ruffy loves him too. Mr. Smith told everyone how Mr. Hatch had watched his newsstand so he could go to the doctor. Mr. Todd told everyone how Mr. Hatch went and found his little girl. And all the children in the neighborhood remembered Mr. Hatch's wonderful brownies and the lemonade and the laughter. Poor Mr. Hatch, what can we do? Then Mr. Goober had an idea. On Saturday morning, when Mr. Hatch woke up to a bright and sunny day, he put on his old overalls and went out to the porch with his dustpan and his broom. He couldn't believe his eyes. All over the porch were red and white hearts and pink bows and boxes of candy, and yellow streamers were flowing from the ceiling. Oh, and in his mailbox there was a shiny silver harmonica sticking out. The front yard was filled with people, happy, smiling people, and they were holding up a huge sign that said, "Everybody loves Mr. Hatch." Well, Mr. Hatch dabbed a tear with his handkerchief and he said, "I do believe somebody loves me after all." And then he smiled and he laughed and he hurried down to be with his friends. So I was thinking, now that we're all doing our social distancing, there are people in your family or in your neighborhood are feeling very lonely and sad. And there's just some little things. You don't have to have a big party like they did for Mr. Hatch. We love at our house when my grandchildren, Cameron and Bryn, draw us pictures or color and bring them to us. I save them all. Or on Father's Day, they made cards for Poppy. He loved to see those beautiful cards that they had done all by themselves. Or you could bring a little treat, some grapes or a nice shiny apple, or maybe even a little sweet treat. Nothing big, but something that will make them feel loved and less lonely. I think I'm going to find someone in my neighborhood to spread a little sunshine to. I hope you will find somebody too, so that next time you can tell me all about the special things that you did. I'd be so proud of you. So you have a great week, and I'll see you next time with another new story. Bye now.